Anyway, so what do Trump's tariffs actually, have to do anything with a brand entering India, right?
Yeah, I think the question is not just Trump's tariffs. The question is the entire geopolitics that has been happening in the last few days, starting from the dastardly act of Pakistan in Pahalgam, and then the ceasefire violations, and then India's retaliation through Operation Sindoor, and then Trump's sudden barrage about how everything should be anti-India, him ordering Tim Cook to not set up the manufacturing plant in India. And then the amazing or the funniest part was that today Trump has said, don't go to India. The next morning, we get the news that Foxconn has given the go ahead for the Karnataka plant area. And today itself, there was the news that there is a joint venture between HCL and Foxconn, and the Indian government has given a 1,500 crore incentive for the semiconductor chip plant.
Wow. No, so as all of us are invested in the India story over here, it sounds really promising news. But
Yeah.
can you just try to take a step back and say why are you picking this trend over all the other trends that have been happening in the past few days? Have there been other trends that we need to notice?
So I think for India, this is one of the biggest stories, and considering that India has always and is now especially
Hmm.
one of the most strategic locations or the trade partners of across the world, especially when it comes to the Gulf countries or the European countries. India is potentially an untapped market. Until now, the problem was India was a very price sensitive market. So especially the global brands or the luxury brands coming into India faced a lot of problems. If you take the Hermes sari issue, or the Dunkin' Donuts, or Gap, right, or Tiffany, in fact, they failed miserably in India in a way. But now, in the last 5 years, the number of millionaires in India has doubled. The number of billionaires in India is at a growing pace. The startup founders, unicorn founders, are literally coming out like as if a machine manufacturing plant is producing them, right? So India has become a very, very strategic market for any global brand looking to expand beyond its own country.
I'll tell
So
you. Yeah,
yeah.
no, no. So you guys are so blasé about these things. You're very sophisticated customers, you millennials and Gen Zers. I remember when a friend of mine from Norway had come down to India, and it was early 2000s, and maybe even before in the 90s, we were
Yeah.
very enthusiastic about every new thing coming in, right? So McDonald's was considered as a luxury thing for a while, but this person who met me said, you guys are so enthusiastic, you've not lost the innocence of a global brand coming, and you're so excited about things. I don't see that kind of excitement, to be honest, and I think that's part and parcel of us growing up as a nation, as an economy. But I have to ask you, now that we've set the ball rolling, and I'm trying to understand what the trend is over here that you want to talk about, do you want to give us a little bit of the context that what is the kind of problem we are trying to solve here today? What are we trying to do?
Yeah, sure. So, taking from your point, right? India used to be a market that always looked up to the global brands,
Hmm.
be it McDonald's, be it a premium segment, be it anything. Now, when Indians are moving abroad, when there is more exposure, and especially with the current situations going on in India, there is a surge of nationalist trend, and it's not just in the last 2 3 months.
Yeah.
This nationalism has been going on since the last, say, 2014 per se,
Hmm.
right? There is more make in India. People are, rather than taking jobs abroad, people are preferring to have their own startups in India. So there is a very huge sentiment towards the Indian brands, towards the Indian makers. This poses a very complicated landscape for the premium brands or the global brands coming into India that have till now penetrated the Indian market through global is equal to premium
Yeah.
proposition.
Yeah.
So
Global
now,
to
yeah,
desirable, at least, if not premium, at least desirable.
exactly, it's desirable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So now with the current situation and the way the things are evolving, the way the Indian psyche is evolving, the global brands need to take a step back and relook at their proposition. It's not just about desirability, or the Indian customer will just flock towards the brand because you have your name. In fact, I was reading about the Hermes sari, and one of the brands, they'd made the Nehru jacket. Now, from Delhi, the Delhi consumer wanted the brand label to be a very conspicuous part of the clothing. But
Mm.
in Maharashtra, uh, the in Maharashtra, only those brands are surviving that are not playing on their label but on their quality. In
Oh,
fact, the Nehru jacket did not even get a second shipment requirement from Mumbai because the label was such a conspicuous part.
I'm sure that there is a counter trend as well, which we can explore a little. First of all, I must completely agree with you. I mean, there are a lot of people in the UK who are preferring to go back to India because India is this growing market, and there's a certain want to connect to the nationalism and the roots and all that. I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. Maybe it is just the economic possibilities. The second thing is, I would say that, Apple coming to India makes business and financial sense to them in any case, and they're just locating their back office, right?
Yeah,
So that is something that may not. I mean, they don't need a story to come to India. And it's a good thing that, if Apple's coming or Foxconn's coming, and all of that. What is really interesting is, okay, so if I'm looking at India as a market, and especially if I'm not particularly well known in India as a global brand, now this
yeah,
might actually comprise of SMEs or maybe even some startups who are quite famous in their own domestic country, maybe the US or the UK or whatever, and you're planning to come into India. What is the storyline that we need to look at? So I'm trying to build this persona, and maybe we can try and solve this for that sort of persona, because
right.
I think that those players are going to have this specific challenge, which we've identified because of this trend.
Yeah.
How do we go about solving for this persona?
Right. And I think the biggest takeaway here, if you are coming to India, trying to penetrate into India, the question is not how to enter India, but how to belong in India. And
Hmm.
not to look at India as one country. India consists of different small Indias.
Yeah,
A Tamil Nadu mindset is much different than a North Indian mindset, or a Delhi mindset, or a Mumbai mindset. So
yeah,
if you're coming, your proposition, your brand proposition or your positioning should reflect the kind of India that you want to target. This is
yeah.
the first positioning problem that I think brands will face.
I think that let's build on this a little more. And I think probably let's try to lose the word brand, or let's lose the word everything. Let's understand, okay, what's my story, pal? How
Yeah,
am I coming into this? Like, what's the myth that I'm trying to generate, whatever. And what comes to my mind is how Amazon did it. And I think Amazon did it fabulously well.
mm,
And the reason why Amazon did it fabulously well was, I think, Flipkart, which is a very, used the nationalistic thing, and
yeah,
a long time back. And what we found out through Flipkart was, like, they were trying to say, okay, don't support multinationals, support a national player, and so therefore, don't support the new player that's coming in town or something like that. And there was this big hoo-ha about it. Amazon did something really interesting, which is a lesson that we can learn from, right? So what Amazon did was that it invested in a lot of ways in which they could connect to the Indian market. The first thing it did was, the Apni Dukan campaign was pretty interesting, right? The second thing that it did was it also connected to the festivals that
mm,
India has. The third thing it did, and this was the real sneaky move, which was connecting to the Amazon Prime Video thing and actually getting nationalistic content like The Family Man on Prime Video. Obviously, the subconscious is going to get impacted, and you're going to do some associations with Amazon. So, if I do a random survey, and this is anecdotal evidence, I do a random survey of people, a lot of my students, and I ask them about, okay, what do you think of Amazon? It's a very desi company. That is so interesting, right? And there's a lesson there. What do you think?
no, absolutely agreed. If you not just Amazon, you look at Jimmy Choo's, how they came into India. They played on the festivities, right?
Yeah,
If you look at the Spanish porcelain brand Ladros,
yeah.
they are making all their porcelain is basically depictions from Ramayana and Mahabharat.
Hmm.
Uh, the right, so and in fact, India is their second biggest market now, right? And there are numerous examples. So the question, so one of the takeaways here is, when you're coming to India, adapt to the Indian culture, have the Indianness in your brand, connect to the Indian roots. The more you do that, the more welcoming the Indian audience will be towards you. And I think that's true for any market, or for any brand that is coming, or any SME that is coming, be it Indian, be it of a global brand, right? You have to connect to the Indian psyche, to the consumer's subconscious, you can say, or the reptilian brain, or what the consumer really wants the brand to give. It's not just that, I belong from America, I belong from Europe, I'm bringing my French tradition into India.
Yeah, that's a tired story. I think.
Exactly, nobody cares about that anymore.
And I think that is what is even complicating or muddying the waters is what you said about the fact that it's actually not India. It's actually like many different places within India having their own nuances and
Right.
cultures and stuff like that. And so therefore I'm beginning to wonder whether a singular story, even for a global brand or even for an SME, is the wise thing to do. I'm not too sure. In fact, if I was consulting a global SME brand, okay, who is
Yeah.
coming into India, I would say, okay, what is your market? Okay,
Yeah.
which markets are you looking at? What's your primary market? What's your secondary market? In those markets, who are the people that you're targeting immediately? Okay,
Yes.
how does your value proposition translate story that is relatable to
Exactly.
those people? Okay,
Yeah.
and maybe we would be starting off in a very different way. It looks small, and a lot of people will have bigger ambitions, but unless and until you figure this piece out, you're not going to get anywhere.
Exactly. I mean, zeroing down on your niche, and then the niche's niche is very important in India. So this is where the five why question. Why are you entering?
Hmm.
Why are you targeting this consumer?
Yeah.
Why this psyche?
Yeah.
Why this positioning? This is extremely important for brands.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think that even if you see, the problem that I see, Janavi, and the one which we are trying to solve through
yeah.
this, by the way, through this revamped us meeting here together is, I think that whenever somebody says, "Oh, you need to rebuild your brand,"
Hmm.
okay, or you need to reposition your brand, or you need to find this, what tends to happen is that the tired old playbook starts getting opened up again. Okay,
Hmm.
so I think we need a little bit of a different language, and I think that what we are really doing, if I go down to first principles, is we are looking at, okay, so what is the conversation that I'm trying to start? What is the market I'm serving? What is the conversation I'm trying to start? And what is the story that will serve to be inspirational, or have a connection, or relate, or whatever it is. And I
Yeah.
think we probably need to, all as marketing people, or as product people or community people, need to probably figure out a way in which we can simplify this stuff and
Right.
make it real.
Right.
That's what I feel.
Absolutely. And on top of that, it's not just, one culture coming into the other culture. It is an amalgamation of two different cultures. So
Yeah.
it is extremely important for brands and their playbook to have people on board who understand all segments of the culture, where you are coming from. Now, for example, we have the presence in UK, UAE, India, right? So people who understand the global perspective, people who understand the Indian market as well as the parent countries' global challenges, or the global perception, that are going to be translated into the Indian brand, the revamped Indian brand. That becomes extremely important. You're not forgetting your own culture. You're bringing your own culture into a newer culture.
I think this is going to be a fascinating place to visit, because I think that maybe perhaps culture is one of those last footholds that a human being can have,
Yeah,
in this
and
in this
something that brands often forget.
and something
Funnily
That's
enough.
something that brands often forget. All right, Janavi, I think we have talked people out of listening to. I'm just kidding. I think there's a lot of value in this discussion, and I think that what we might want to do is continue this format on every Tuesday and Thursday
Yeah,
around this time, and probably explore. What we are trying to achieve over here is to figure out what the trends are, choose a trend, make sure that that trend is kind of explored through the challenge that it poses to a few brands, and then figure out how we can approach solving that sort of problem or opportunity that presents itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, the real world problems with the trends and how you can leverage the trends to grow your business.
Yes, and Mr. Trump is going to keep giving us many opportunities like this. All right. On that happy note, see you on Thursday, January.
See you. Bye bye.